Okay, 2024 has arrived. It's time to look back at 2023, see how the market went, and then what we can expect in 2024. So, I experienced the housing market last year firsthand, but it wasn't until I just sat down to reflect and to research for this video that I recognized how unique of a market it was last year. So first, let's do a little overview for context. Then let's look at the stats for our local market so we can see what the true numbers are. Then next, I'll share some stories from the trenches and try to put some flesh on these bones of this real estate market. And finally, let's look at what we could expect in 2024. Now, last year, we saw the highest interest rates that we've experienced in 20 years. We saw the fewest number of sales that we've had in over 2 decades. There was uncertainty, there was volatility, there was also significant price appreciation in the second half of the year. And that was due largely to the lack of inventory, and that has been the most significant factor. I feel like there also started to be a certain amount of acceptance of market conditions, of the interest rate, and people, I feel like, began to start looking forward instead of looking back at what had been. Now, the major difference I saw between 2022 and 2023 is that buyers became much more selective. In 2022, it didn't much matter where the property was, what the condition was like. It was going to sell. There was going to be competition. In 2023, I feel like the general mindset of buyers was, if I'm going to be paying this much for a mortgage, I want to make sure it's the right house in the right location, and I'm willing to wait for it. And they didn't feel the pressure to compete in multiple offer situations. And because of that, I saw properties sitting on the market longer. Now, surprisingly, this didn't necessarily impact the price that people got. Another interesting thing about this market is sometimes I'd see homes sit on the market for 4 to 6 weeks with few to no offers, and then suddenly a buyer or multiple buyers would jump in and offer at the asking price or even above. So my own experience on my listings is that I had a ton of activity. They'd sell within a week, usually well over the asking price, but definitely with far fewer offers than I was used to experiencing. Still, very happy sellers. Now, for my buyer clients, the offers that I got accepted were in multiple offer situations, but for the first time in a long time, I was able to get offers accepted with contingencies in most cases. But contingencies give you a way to back out if a problem arises. Hadn't been able to write an offer with contingencies for years and finally had that opportunity. Okay, now for some stats. So let's first focus on what most people are interested in, which is prices. Median sales price for single-family homes, townhouses, and condos in Santa Clara County in 2023 was $1,480,000. So for context, that is the second highest year on record, only second to 2022, and there was only a $5,000 difference between those 2 years. So the second half of 2023 was able to make up the crazy appreciation we had in the first half of 2022. Certain areas fared better than others. So here's a breakdown for all the cities in the South Bay of how prices performed year over year. So take a look at each one of these cities. Inventory and the number of sales. This is another important statistic. 2023 had the fewest number of sales since 2000, which is as far back as my MLS data goes. The next year in that time period with that few of sales was in 2008 when the market began to crash. So the huge distinction there, though, is the number of properties that were available, because in 2008, the number of properties for sale peaked in June at 9,200 properties for sale. In 2023, we never saw a single month that was over 1,316. So total number of sales in 2008, 12,000. Last year, 10,000. So 2023 had 86% fewer properties available, yet only 17% fewer sales. And I think the huge difference is demand. I mean, right now there is a lot of demand. It's the supply that's lacking. Inventory has been so low for so long, and you combine people staying in their homes longer with higher interest rates, with higher equity positions, with restrictive building laws, and investors who for 12 years have been buying up investment properties, and low inventory is the result. So now a little story time, because I had a chance to work with some awesome people this year, and I'll give you just a couple examples, one on the buy side, one on the sell side, that I think really capture the spirit of the housing market in 2023. So the first house that I sold last year was in Sunnyvale. It was a dated home, but in an excellent neighborhood, and it had incredible potential. So we still wanted to show it in its best light. So we painted, we put in new carpeting, we had it professionally staged, and I say this over and over and over again, those three things are what you get the best return on in preparing your home for sale. So we made sure we did that. So we went on the market in one of the worst storms of the year, and first day of open houses, I wondered how many people are actually going to show up to this thing. I was pleasantly surprised it was pretty busy, and then branches started falling from trees. So I looked out the front room window as I was mid-sentence describing to a buyer the property and saw this branch land, what I thought was on the hood of my car. Thankfully, it was just the leaves and the branches, small branches. The larger piece landed in front of it. Then the most beautiful thing happened, and I think this is actually part of what allowed us to get the $2,575,000 price that we got, and that is 3 different neighbors immediately came out of their homes. They pulled the branches away from the car, they pulled branches out of people's yards, and with a chainsaw, they cut them up and put them in the street to be hauled away. So the family that ended up purchasing the home was there to witness the neighborhood coming together in an instant and demonstrating what a tight-knit community this was. And it was a really cool thing to witness. Now, another adventure of helping a wonderful couple buy their very first home came with a little bit more drama than the typical sale, but it ultimately worked out to my client's favor. It's also kind of a cautionary tale of why you should not sell your own property, even if you get your license so you can do a deal every few years. This couple had looked at many different properties. There were some good opportunities that we came across that we missed out on, but our time did come and we got into contract on a home in a great San Jose neighborhood. The home was nice, but it still needed quite a bit of work that should have been disclosed by the seller, and they were slow in doing that. This is an example of why experience and knowledge of the contract and of disclosures is really important in the realtor that you hire. Now, the seller was a licensed real estate agent, but in her inexperience, she was slow to disclose details, and then when she did update the disclosures, she did it in such a way that it gave my clients a way to back out even if we hadn't had contingencies. So we were able to renegotiate, and it cost this owner-seller thousands of dollars. My clients ultimately benefited from that, but I really like to handle all the negotiations before an offer is accepted. When you have the inspections up front, you have a complete disclosure package, and you're able to negotiate in good faith, knowing everything about the property. But back to the present, looking at the future, what can we expect in 2024? This entire housing market, from prices to inventory to competition and affordability, I think all depends on interest rates. Every article that I've read, every analysis I've looked at and conversation I've had point to a very competitive housing market in 2024. Rates are expected to be in the 5% range by the second half of the year, and I think the buyers that had accepted the interest rate hike and were still able to afford to buy have been buying. When the rates drop, I think you'll see a lot more buyers entering the market. Now, you couple this with limited inventory and this lagging supply, prices are going to rise. Nationally, I've seen estimates of 5%. I think actually in the South Bay, we're going to see appreciation even higher than that. Speaking with neighbors on a street of a home I recently sold and just asking, we sold it for a great price. Have you considered selling? 3 owners on a single street said, yes, we would love to sell and have more space, but we are not willing to give up our 3% 30-year fixed interest rate to then buy a home with double the interest rate for a more expensive home. So they decided to remodel and expand their existing homes instead of selling. I've heard this referred to as the golden handcuffs. It's wonderful to have that low of an interest rate, but it definitely limits your options on moving. So because of this, I expect we will see limited inventory in 2024. I think there's going to be more properties for sale than there was in 2023, but not significantly more. So in summary, what will we likely see in 2024? Lower interest rates, higher prices, homes selling quickly, multiple offers, limited inventory. There's always variables that could impact these expectations. I mean, it's an election year. Prices are generally lower than they are seasonally in the months leading up to an election. There's also economic considerations. There's wars. I think the timing of making a move, either to buy or sell, it depends most on your personal situation more than anything else. 10 years ago, my wife and I took the advice of homeowners that have been in their homes for 50 plus years when I've asked them. And when I've said, what's the best time to buy? They say, when you're able to. Prices have more than doubled since we bought in 2014. If they had gone down, would I have regretted the decision? No, because I knew that prices eventually would go back up. We were planning to stay there for at least 5 years. And it's my hope to never have to sell this property, that I can keep it as an investment. So for now, we love where we are. We love the space. We love our neighbors. We love the community. But I know that some people look at the housing market from an opportunity standpoint of trying to perfectly time the market. And I'd say most people are usually surprised by being right or surprised by being wrong. Rarely can someone say, oh yeah, totally called what the market was going to do. Owning real estate has always been a bedrock of wealth building, and you need a place to live. So wealth and memories are both being built in the home that you own. I mean, not often are finances and heartfelt emotions able to be so perfectly paired. And I've seen homes sell for less than what they could have because the buyers recognized that the sellers had an emotional connection with that property and they were able to connect on that level. So if you're buying or selling, make sure it's for the right reasons. And I love having those conversations. I love planning for the future, experiencing change, analyzing to make sure that you're making the right financial decisions. These are essential conversations to have. So I'd love to hear what's made you think about buying or selling. And if there's any questions that if answered, it might change your thought into action. So I am really excited for 2024. Let's do this.